It was a very professional stoppage. He's done. But I'd rather stop it 2 seconds too early rather than 2 seconds too late.
Simon, if I'm totally honest, mate, this is if I'm totally honest, it wasn't intentional.
This is Talk Boxing with Simon Jordan and Spencer Oliver. In fact, it's episode 11. Don't forget to keep liking and subscribing and keep leaving those brilliant questions in the comment section below. But let's get on with this week's show. Spencer, where shall we begin? At the beginning, I suspect. Great week of boxing last week. Yep. Fabulous fight. We've got to start with Yarde versus Beterbiev, however we want to pronounce it. But what a fight. What a build-up. What an evening.
Yeah, it was incredible.
What's your takeaways?
Listen, it was incredible. It was one of those fights that I think that going into it, we said, listen, this could be one of the best fights that we've seen in recent years in a British ring, stylistically, with these two. Very explosive, and it lived up to all expectations. I think Anthony Yarde boxed out of his skin. I've got to be honest. I think that it was a fight that when you was watching, you always felt that Beterbiev was going to win the fight, but there was moments where you thought Anthony Yarde is going to turn this around. I think, like, you know, the fourth round was the first time Yarde got hurt. He come back and had an incredible fifth round. And then the action was swinging one way and the other. And actually, Beterbiev, he had to ask himself questions in there as well. He had to go to a dark place as well. I thought it was a first-class performance. And more importantly, I thought it was a first-class stoppage from the corner to pull him out. Tunde pulling him out when he did was a first-class.
It was a professional stoppage.
Yeah, absolutely.
The word professional reverberated because what it did was it enables him to fight another day without the psychological and physical damage of being dropped heavy, which is probably what would have happened. I watched two fights, Spence. I don't mean two fights on the evening. I watched two fights. I watched the live action, which was absolutely engrossing and compelling and drew you in. Yeah. Right? And then I watched the fight back again to get a different perspective. Right? And on the evening, what I saw was a hugely charged, brave Anthony Yarde, looking very much like he was in this fight, and there was a distinct possibility if he could land heavy that he could take Beterbiev out. Yeah. When I look back on it, what I saw was the same thing from Anthony Yarde, which was a lion in the ring with a heart as big as one. Yeah. But what I saw was an elite fighter that knew how to manage that fight. Yeah. That fought at a level that Anthony Yarde probably can't get to, which means that he probably can't win a world title in that division as long as Dimitri Bivol and Beterbiev are around, because I saw a fighter that had weapons that Anthony Yarde doesn't have. He has a jab. Anthony Yarde's jab is a probing, range setter-upper, whereas Beterbiev's is a spiteful stab jab that sets it up for what he wants to do next. And the wearing down of Anthony Yarde over the rounds, when he got to round 4, because the first round or two, Anthony Yarde shouldn't have thrown anything other than left hooks because he was landing with everyone that he threw. Sure. And my takeaway was how brave and how engaging the fight was and what a phenomenal spectacle it was for those there, but what a level Beterbiev was at. Was your takeaway
I've done
something
exactly the same as you. When we was there and we was in the moment and we was like sort of commentating on it, so you're engrossed in that moment. So you're not seeing it as you would say if you're at home and you're just watching it different on TV. You see two different fights.
You're hugely emotionally invested.
Emotionally invested is exactly the words. So I was there and I was thinking, like, because obviously, you know, your heart's with Anthony Yarde as well. And what a lovely kid he is, by the way. You know, he's a great guy. So you're sort of invested in him and you're watching the fight, but you're also watching Anthony Yarde and thinking, whoa, he's going to turn it around. You know, he's doing something. He's, you know, this is heroic effort. And that's exactly where I was at with it. But when I went home, and same as you, so I'm going to give you my side from when I went home and I watched the fight from at home, it was, you watch the fight and you watch this elite level fighter in Beterbiev, where you go, he's controlling the space. Even though Anthony Yarde was in the fight, you could tell that Beterbiev was always going to win, and it was a matter of time as opposed to, you know, Yarde winning.
It became ominous, didn't it?
But what I saw on the night was, and I was looking and I was trying to get him invested into the emotional side of the pair of them and the psychological side of the pair of them. And I was looking at Beterbiev. We were staring at him in the corner, and I'm looking at him going, he's in a dark place as well. He was asking, but that's what elite level champions do. They feed off it and they come through.
They can operate in that space.
So when Yarde went down in the 8th round, we talked about the first one and how good he was at coming back and everything. For me, he blew a gasket in round 7. He went out there, he had a really good start to round 7. Beterbiev turned it around and put him under pressure in that corner. And I think stole a lot of the soul of Anthony Yarde, and Yarde then coming out for the 8th, he got put down. And this is what I want to talk about a lot as well, because a lot of people are saying, well, I felt like the fight was stopped too soon. You've got to look at the body language of a fighter, and I know that because I've been in these situations, and when he got up, right, yes, he put in the heroic effort. The last thing a fighter wants to do is say, I've quit, right? But when he got up, the body language was he walked slowly back to the corner. It's like saying to the referee, stop the fight, but he doesn't want to say stop it. And the referee allowed it to continue. And Tunde jumped up on the ringside. He recognised that because that's his boy. And he went, and you hit the nail on the head, Simon, go, let a fighter live to fight another day. And he jumped up, went like that, and the stoppage was perfect.
Well, it was a very professional stoppage. And I use the word professional because what it was someone looking at the business of boxing as a professional outcome and say, right, he's done. And what's going to happen here, I'd rather stop it 2 seconds too early rather than 2 seconds too late. People will look at the comparison. They'll look at the fact that because he got up, right? He didn't get up the same way Chris Eubank JR got up the previous week, did he?
No.
Chris Eubank got up in almost Trevor Berbick territory, didn't he?
Almost. That was ego grabbing him up and not taking his time. And like he got up, his legs were gone. It was Trevor Berbick territory.
Yeah.
He was totally gone and he was trying, but Yarde got up, his legs were there, but the fight had been knocked out of him.
That's right. Yeah. But I look at the fight itself and I look back on it and I look at the investment because I don't know how you were scoring it because I looked at the judges' scorecards and I'm surprised that there was this difference, in terms of I didn't score Anthony being 2 rounds ahead.
Yeah.
I felt that Beterbiev was coming on and was coming on from the 4th round.
Yeah.
I think Anthony came out and one of the things that I felt about him when I look back on it and listen to other people. I wanted to see other people's points of view and listen to other elite fighters talking about it. And they talked about this nervousness that Anthony Yarde came out with, this jittery movement. We knew he was going to be quick because that's what he does. He is he's a quick fighter. But the jittery movement is energy debilitating. It's that nervous energy that he probably needs to control a little bit better, which meant at some point he was going to run out of energy. And if he didn't get this guy out of it there within 6 or 7 rounds, the balance of probability was always going to suggest that down the straight, Beterbiev was going to take him out.
See, I didn't see that. I didn't see it on
the night, but
I thought that the game plan, the tactics that Tunde and Anthony and the team had come up with was spot on. They obviously worked on that left hook. The left hook was working well. Yarde was just peppering with a jab and he was landing the big right hands. I think Beterbiev was the one that looked surprised by Anthony's game plan, and he was the one that had to do the adjustments. But that's what great fighters do.
But he's easy to hit, isn't it? And we know he's easy to hit. We've seen him get hit. He gets hit by everybody.
Yeah.
Right? And we now know that his accolades to Anthony was, I've not been hit as hard as this, as often as that, and it was much more difficult than I anticipated. But he also went on to qualify that a little bit later on, saying that he wasn't at his best. And so what I felt, and again, it's not a criticism because I am an Anthony Yarde admirer. I wanted Anthony. I was hugely invested. Michelle was with me, driving me insane, screaming at the wing about how much involved she was in the fight because we all wanted Anthony to win.
Yeah, sure.
I wanted him to get the plaudits because I do feel, with no blame attribution, that it wasn't enough heat around this fight.
Yeah.
Because it's up there with the best fights we've seen. We know you and I were raving and waxing lyrical about Joyce and Joseph Parker.
Yeah.
This was every bit as good.
Oh, every bit.
And actually probably more dynamic because there was shots being thrown by both fighters all the time from round 1 to round 8. But, I look at it and felt that Anthony was a little one-dimensional in his fighting. And I don't know whether there's an ability to be able to change that because he was headhunting a lot of the time. He didn't switch down. Beterbiev did, and was clever enough to be able to switch a situation, being on the ropes, into a situation where Anthony was in trouble. And the more I look back on it, and I think, and I was uncomfortable.
See, I saw it as Anthony Yarde, so I think he come out with a game plan. He was boxing off that back foot, landing left hooks and everything else. And then when he got floored in round 4, he then bit down on his gum shield. And I think tactically, he changed the game plan and tried to take the fight to Beterbiev. And he actually, I think it was it round 5 or round 6, he had Beterbiev in trouble and he was on the back foot and jittering around.
But did it move into the territory, sorry to talk across you for a second, but doesn't it move into the territory that what we had with Anthony Yarde was a puncher's chance? And I thought that actually, when you look back on it, the fight was being controlled past the 4th round. I know it was a busy round in the 5th, and he got hit with a big right hand, Beterbiev, that he didn't see coming, and he got on his bike and he got out of the way, and then came back round and regrouped. He regrouped, and when he regrouped and when he got hit, Anthony Yarde said it himself. I think he used the word "ras" in context of the scenario where he got hit and he went "ras." I got hit back, and I laughed at that because ultimately what he was doing was tipping his cap.
I think what he done with that performance was he showed that he was better than a puncher's chance. When you talk about puncher's chances, it's when a guy's got a big whack and you see him and he's getting completely outboxed. Like, let's say, like Oliver McCall when he knocked out Lennox
But he
Lewis,
would never have beaten him over 12 rounds.
But he knew that. And I think
that makes it a puncher's chance.
But what I'm saying is, as the fight unfolded, we went in there thinking that he's got a puncher's chance. I said that in the build-up. I said he has got but I think
we thought it was
as it unfolded,
shootout,
it was a little bit more than a puncher's chance because he actually had a game plan and it was working at times.
But we thought it was going to be a shootout.
Yeah.
Most people did, that they were going to meet square on and someone was going to go inside the first 6 rounds, right?
Yeah.
So let's just peel it back and say, do you believe that if this had continued and Beterbiev hadn't landed a big shot in the 7th and knocked him down, and it continued to be this fight, 8th, then they would have gone on. I think Beterbiev would have got stronger and stronger and got a points victory.
I'm with you.
So with that in mind, it takes you into the territory that he had one option and one option only, which was to knock this fellow out.
Well, I think he knows that. I think that going into that,
doesn't that make it a puncher's chance?
Well, no, because listen, you're totally right in what you say. It does make it a puncher's chance. What I'm saying is, as it was unfolding, I was looking at it going, you're actually better than a punch. Perhaps he didn't believe in himself as much as he should have going into that because of the reputation that Beterbiev had. But I think as it unfolded, I went, he's got more than a puncher's chance here.
Yeah, me too. I
think that aged Beterbiev that fight as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
When I was watching it, I mean, again, I'm in danger of disappearing at my own backside with over-analysis and getting paralysis from analysis. But when I watched it on the night, I was more in the camp of believing that he could knock him out. When I watched it back in retrospect, I felt that Beterbiev was controlling the fight, and that really we were moving into the territory of this guy needs to walk onto a big one from Anthony, and then Anthony needs to jump on him. Do you think at times Anthony could have jumped on him? Do you think there was an opportunity for him to? Because we said this on the week before. Yeah. We said if he gets him going, he's got to do what he didn't do to Kovalev in the 8th round, and jump on him.
Yeah.
Do you think there was an opportunity in that fight when he hit him with big shots and moved him around that he could have done more?
No, because I believe that he tried to do that, but it's all about the levels, and I think that Beterbiev took that away from him. Yeah. He got out of range. He's smart boxer. Like, he's not just the monster that people put him down for. He got out of range. Yeah. He was moving around, and he took that away from Yarde, So, and that's what I'm saying. In the end, by the time that 7th round, the end of 7th round, Yarde had blown a gasket then. And that's all about levels, right? Because they were both competing at that time at that level, and he was looking at Beterbiev going, he's in a dark place as well here, but he wasn't at the level where Anthony was. Anthony was fighting he was in 5th gear maybe by by the time the 4th round come, whatever, and Beterbiev was still going through the levels, and he was coming through that time. But that's what makes him a great fight. But take nothing away from Yarde. He can only come out with praise from this fight. His stock has risen hugely.
Yeah. But I can't help it. I know it sounds unkind because you know that I'm a huge Anthony Yarde fan. It's almost like a cheerleader for him before this fight. And everyone was telling me, a lot of people were telling me that he's going to get cleaned out.
Yeah.
I was being told by certain people within talkSPORT he was going to this was going to be a 4 or 5 round beatdown.
Yeah.
Right? But I do look at it and say, I don't want Anthony Yarde to be in the territory of gaining solace from a defeat.
Yeah.
Because a good fight isn't one you put up. A good fight is one you win. Right? And we can't allow him to... Because I felt afterwards, as much as it was a remarkable performance, and it was an absolutely stellar night of boxing for those 8 rounds, and everyone got huge value for their money in returns for that particular fight. But the argument, I felt that afterwards, whilst he was relaxed, and I liked to see him happy and healthy and laughing, there was almost a tacit acceptance of the defeat rather than a resentment or an anger about losing or a disappointment. It was very relaxed. Yeah. He had all his little gang around him, and they were off talking about other things and worthwhile things, because I like the fact he talks about knife crime and getting involved in the community. That's great. But when we were talking about the fight, he was talking about being in the same room having stitches with Beterbiev and talking about the nature of the fight.
And talking about the acceptance was a little bit too much.
Very light-hearted.
Right,
I don't know. What do you think?
No, I just think that, I just think that he recognised that he knew that, listen, what we've got to respect about Yarde is some fighters...
He knew the size of the task.
He knew the size of the task. Some fighters are gifted different opportunities for world titles and easier options.
He's got the hardest route.
He's gone out to Russia. He's boxed Kovalev at a time when Kovalev was considered the monster that Beterbiev is now. And
because I was being told last week by Gareth A. Davis that he was done and dusted and a diminished fighter, and really and truly that was an opportunity for Anthony to have won a fighter against a guy that was really only reputation at that time.
Well, that's it. That's what I'm saying. So So
I think, was that wrong then?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Dribble.
So yeah, absolutely.
Dribble, Gareth. More of it.
Dribble, mate. Total. Like, listen, Kovalev at the time was. Listen. He was a good fighter at the time, and if you're not a good fighter, you would never have been able to weather the storm that he did against, because he was in trouble against Yarde in the 8th round, and he done what champions do. He weathered the storm, come back and won it eventually in the 11th. Kovalev is a great fighter, and that was a tough task for Yarde out there, and you got to respect him taking this fight against Beterbiev here again. So he's had 2 world title opportunities against elite fighters, right? On a different night against a lesser champion, he would have won a world title. And I still believe, by the way, he'll win a world title. I truly believe that. But I don't know what route.
Do you think I'm right in my opening salvo of suggesting not while Bivol and Beterbiev are around?
Oh, yeah, definitely. But I think that there's so many moving parts with Bivol. He could go down to super middle. Talking about a Canelo fight down at super middle, that title might become vacant then. Beterbiev is 38 years of age. Anthony Yarde's only 30. What I'm saying is, I think he'll only grow from that, and he'll come back stronger. You're going to be talking
about getting another opportunity. If Bivol is going to fight, if they're going to put Callum Smith in the mix, right, then it's going to push Bivol versus Beterbiev back.
Yeah.
If they're not, and they're going to get an undisputed opportunity, which might trump. We have this debate, you and I, whether undisputed trumps mandatory. Time will tell who's right on that one. But let's say that Bivol fights Beterbiev in 6 months' time.
Yeah.
Right, that's 6 months gone.
It's just luck.
Oh, come on. It's not luck. It's not lucky.
Yes, it's luck.
Why do you say you're lucky winning like that? Why lucky?
I don't know. It's luck. It's not my fault. It's coach's fault. You know, they did that, not me. Yes, you know, he gave me a good fight. Like, you know, he's really good. Like, he's young. I hope he will doing well in the future. He's a really good fighter. I want next job.
Just a job.
But if it's Bivol, it's best job for me.
Who wins that, by the way?
It's difficult, isn't it? Because Bivol, to me, has gone up massively in reputation because of the nature of the performance he put in against Canelo Alvarez, right? And let's not forget...
Well, we've got to remember Canelo Alvarez is a welterweight coming up.
But that's my point.
Yeah.
So we've built him now into this phenomenal fighter. We didn't think that after he beat Craig Richards.
No.
We now think it. In the last 2 fights that he's had, he's looked remarkably impressive. If he can maintain the manner in which he fought, albeit against Canelo Alvarez and the other fella he fought recently, I would pick Bivol to win that fight.
See, what Bivol is great at...
But not by on a points decision, not by any sort of stoppage.
What Bivol is great at is keeping the fight at range, like he done with Canelo. He's great at controlling the space, keeping it at range. What Beterbiev is great at is closing the space and taking that space away from fighters, and that's what makes it interesting because if he can do that, I mean, that jab that you talked about with Beterbiev is like it's like a right hand. It's like, it is phenomenal, right? That is a soul destroyer for any fighter.
Is there any, when we look at Yarde's fight, let's move back to Yarde for a second because I want to make him the centre of what we're discussing because he's our fighter, right?
Yeah.
Right. What can he do? What can he take from that performance? I'm looking at it going, what can he do differently? One of the things that people talk about is the physicality of him, the muscle mass, the build, that will ultimately make him gas at the end of fights. And perhaps the jittery start, which expends energy and burns away at some of the nervous energy. And the level of fight is hard. And the fact that he's got a jab, which isn't as much of a weapon as the elite fighters have got.
Sure.
Is this something that Tundi can deal with and James Cook can deal with and look at that fight and go, I tell you what, we can take this, this and this. Because he was miles better in this fight than he was against Kovalev.
Yeah, sure.
Wasn't he?
Yeah, because James Cook is an excellent addition to the team. Right, what you've got there with Tunde, with James Cook, is you've got experience. You can't buy that, and I think that these guys are experienced.
Can they drag him up? Can they bring those into his armour?
That's what I'm saying. These guys are experienced enough to go away and go, listen, another great shot. We'll go back. We'll rebuild. We've got to remember with Anthony Yarde that he's got no amateur experience, very little amateur experience. He's got that, so he's still effectively learning on the job. And as you said there, it's the best you've seen him. So he's improving all the time.
It's an exponential growth,
I think where we got to look at this now with Anthony Yarde is this is where we're at. Like, you're going to look at this, can he go on and win a world title? We've got to now go, right, let's go back to the British scene. And you got your Joshua Boats is there, your Craig Richards is in there, you got him in there. And I think that's where you're going to get these guys. Let's get these guys in the mix, and the winner of those, let's see if they can go on. So it's like a little prelim before boxing for this world title again. I think that's the sensible option, because I think we've got 3 or 4 guys in this country that could go on and win world titles. But I think a little elimination thing.
Where do you expect him to land next? I mean, ultimately, what he's done is he's built his reputation. I was already an admirer of his, and I'm not suggesting that anything I say should be taken as read. But I was an admirer of his. I was so impressed with him on his performance against Lyndon Arthur. I like him as a fella.
Yeah.
I like the way he walked into the ring. He was ready to go.
Yeah.
So I wasn't surprised he put on a credible performance. There were people suggesting that this was just a beatdown. I know I said it earlier on in the show.
Yeah,
it wasn't that. And it wasn't that.
Far from it.
So where do you expect him to land next? We've talked about Boazzi. We've talked about, and I'm a huge admirer of Josh Boazzi's as well.
Same.
And you kind of want those guys to avoid one another for a little bit. But
you'd like a world title on the line, but it's like you say, it's
a vacated belt they fight for.
It depends about the landscape of this light heavyweight division because you've got Bivol and Beterbiev that are obviously ruling it, and they've got all the titles.
But they're going to be away.
If they get fragmented and they get broken up, then the guys have got a chance. But we've got to see where it is.
If they're going to fight and undisputed, there's not going to get fragmented, are they? They're going to all land with one fella.
But how long is Beterbiev going to be around? This is the million-dollar question. He's 38. What I'm saying is, fights like that put miles on the clock, put years on you. Like
he didn't look like to me he was getting old overnight.
No, he didn't. He didn't. But like Father Time does catch up with you at some point. Like let's say 2 years. But in 2 years' time, Yarde's 33. What I'm saying, he's still young enough. His time's there.
Time. If he takes the right fights now, and I suppose the question I was asking in a roundabout way is: we've talked about Craig Richards, we've talked about Josh Boazzi. We've got Callum Smith in the mix there as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Who do you think is the best opportunity for Anthony Yarde to keep himself in forward momentum? Despite the loss, he's in forward momentum, isn't he?
Yeah.
Right? So with that in mind, who do you think he should fight next to keep the momentum going so the next time a world title is in the offing, he's in space and the right place to be able to take it?
Sure. Great question. Like I agree with you as in to go on and box for a world title. I don't know what Callum Smith's doing now. Will he be next?
Is it worth him fighting Craig Richards?
I think so. I think that's a great fight. That's a great fight. Do you know why? Because of where they're both at in their careers. You know, he's come off the loss to Bivol.
Craig needs a win.
Craig's lost to Josh They both do. And I think that's actually, you've hit the nail on the head there.
All right, well, all being said, what we got to see, most importantly, alongside the fact that both fighters came out of the ring healthy and slightly wealthier, that no one came out with any serious damage. Anthony Yarde.
That's due to the corner of
That's due to
Yarde.
So chapeau to Anthony, up and onwards, and we'll look forward to seeing him back in the room soon.
Brilliant.
Okay, Spence, I suppose the other big story of the evening at Wembley Arena on Saturday was the face-off between Jake Paul and Tommy Fury. I mean, much to my disdain and disgust, I came back from the toilet, which I wish I'd stayed in, to see this WWE sort of showdown, which I want to talk to you in a second about the reoccurrence of these between these two Herberts. The whole auditorium stood up and I sat down to watch this. I don't know what I heard you say. I mean, a stroke of genius for you could be anything. It could be buttering a piece of bread, I suspect. But you consider this to be a stroke of genius, this whole spectacle. Walk me through what you think you saw and what the value of it is.
Listen, so what we saw was we're capturing a new audience here. And yes, it is entertainment /WWE /boxing, whatever you want to call it, YouTube boxing, whatever you want to call it. But Jake Paul and Tommy Fury are actually real boxers. They both got licenses. It's not like that Misfits rubbish that you watch, where some of them don't know a left hook from a fish hook. They're all over the place. You know, it's like, it's a good fight for the reasons. It's a Fury name. We saw Tyson saying, well, I'll leave him in Saudi. If he don't win, he's staying in Saudi. There's a lot on the line for him there.
He's a handsome little sod, isn't he? That
he is, mate. He
irritating,
is.
That, isn't it?
He is. There's a lot on the line for Fury. And Jake Paul, obviously, is the first time he's boxed a real boxer. Yep. You know, there's been a lot of noise around Jake Paul boxing these 40-year-old plus ex-MMA stars, ex-UFC stars, etc. So now we've got a real fight. And actually,
have you ever seen that TV series Catweasel? You ever remember that TV series from the 70s? I don't know you guys might remember the 70s.
So sorry,
Catweasel, there's a dreadful looking little scarecrow-like character, which is what Jake Paul looks like, isn't he?
Yeah.
With that amount of money, you can get
Scarecrow-like is probably a fair assessment, yeah. But anyway, what I saw then, Simon, and this is what it was, what I saw on the night was, it was very calm, but a little bit subdued in there. Nothing happening. It was freezing cold, and there was no real buzz about the place. It was freezing cold.
It wasn't freezing cold.
It was where I was sitting,
level,
mate. Where I was sitting,
you get, I suppose heat rises, didn't it?
Anyway, back to what I was saying. when the two guys come in the ring, I don't know why somebody had his top off, by the way. That's a bit weird. But anyway, when they come, because it was cold.
Something for the ladies,
and you could clearly see by looking at him, it was cold. Anyway, yeah, so when, but when they got in the ring, the energy levels rose, man, and you cannot deny that, fairness. Right? It went through the roof. You know, there was a genuine excitement. I know there's a lot of people around this, and I'll probably get slagged off for saying this on here. That I've got an interest in it. I'm invested in it. I like it. I think it's a good fight. I think it's capturing another audience.
But do you think? I mean, look, I get it, and I have to say, as much as I dislike it, and I dislike some of the theatre surrounding it. I walked back, as I said, in all seriousness, I walked back with my Michelle, and we walked into the room, and she's a very bright lady, looks at marketing of things and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. And her first reaction was, I know you think this stuff is shit, right? But you've got to look at what's happening in this auditorium.
Thank you.
You've got to look at it, because the entire audience was up. You know, these kids behind me, for the entire fight, screaming at Tyson Fury, who was 2 rows in front of me, wanting to get his attention. But the absolute energy, because it was a little bit subdued for a period of time. There was a couple of good fights that went on before, so they shouldn't have been subdued. Yeah. But the temperature in the room went up massively. And what my takeaway from it was, I still retain and maintain the same view. Yeah. It ain't for me. Yeah. I look at it and say that it's WWE stuff, which is marketing. Yeah. I get this was an audience, you've got to take advantage of it. I didn't really feel that I wanted it on a bill beneath a world light heavyweight championship bout that was coming up next. But my takeaway was, with what I'm going to do and when I land in boxing, one of the things I would be thinking about, whoever I do it with, is not mainline, but a separate business, subsidiary, get his own chief executive. And this is a space you'd be bloody stupid commercially not to try and monetize. I look at it and I think to myself, you know, the Jake Paul, Tommy Fury spectacle, both of them are getting more famous and financially well heeled now off the back of this without actually having done a lot. And that might be chapeau. You might say, well done. If you can do less for more, that's the nature of the game, isn't it? Sure. I look at it and think, it's a structured outcome. I can't see why Jake Paul would lose this fight. Otherwise, the Jake Paul story comes to an end.
Floyd Mayweather versus Aaron Chalmers is going on as well.
What, Judith's son?
No,
was it they're fighting on a holiday resort? I wish you were here.
I'm saying,
I don't wish I was there.
What whets your appetite more? Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury, Floyd Mayweather versus Aaron Chalmers?
Who cares? Neither.
Yeah, I know, but do you know when the Floyd Mayweather fight is going on?
Let me think. Who cares?
Right, it's going on the night before Jake Paul, Tommy Fury, but it's at the O2 Arena. Okay. But what I'm saying is, when it's both were announced, I go, I'm invested in Jake Paul, Tommy Fury. Floyd Mayweather versus Aaron Chalmers is an exhibition. We know what he's going to do. He's going to be clowning around. It's going to be the Floyd Mayweather show. It's boring. I don't want to see it.
All vitriol to one side, and in danger of repeating myself, I have to suggest, despite my best endeavours to try and block it out and ignore it, if you're sat in an auditorium and you told me the week before, you said to me, it doesn't matter that they were at 7 o'clock and they just watched CBBBs before they went out and watched it. Yeah. There is an energy around this. Yeah. And, you know, when I walked back in, because I'd gone to the toilet, bumped into Joe Amphlett, one of the producers, and talkSPORT, had a chat about the Anthony-Yarde fight, come back in, seen a lot of people out there looking forward to the fight, walked into this environment and gone, what the hell's going on in here?
Yeah, different room.
Then I saw these two Gilberts in the middle of the ring going at one another, talking trash. But what you could not ignore is there was 10,000 people bristling with the hairs on the back of their neck, focused on what was being said. They wouldn't have learned anything, but they would have been engaged. Yeah. So I have to reluctantly accept that there's a space for this. Just where that space manifests itself, I don't want it to be overly impacting upon professional boxing. And I also do think it's slightly preposterous that you've got a WBC cruiserweight world title fight as an undercard.
Yeah, but I think what people
Bellew Jack and Makuba undercard.
I know, it's crazy. But I think what people have got to do here, right, and this is what I've done, is like I've separated this whole YouTube / WWE / entertainment world from the boxing world.
From the boxing world.
But from the boxing world. What I'm saying is, I enjoy that. I look at it differently to what I do from the boxing world, and the boxing fans in general get annoyed. They go, "Oh, this is mocking our sport of boxing and all that." And I go, "No, it's not, mate. You've just got to separate it." And like you said, there's a home for that, and there's a place for it, and it's not going away. So just enjoy it.
All right, well done. You gave me a convincing appraisal. And I have to say, I understand a little bit more about it.
I sort of got you. I won you over.
No, you haven't. I've seen some money.
No.
So I think I'll have some of it. But listen, up and onward. Spence, last week we talked in detail about Eubank and Smith. And one of the things that came out was people's sort of unhappiness that we hadn't discussed this elbow.
Yeah.
And what is now being considered a legitimate reason for an appeal by Eubank, and a scenario where he may have grounds to change the direction of travel on what's gone on with this fight.
Yeah.
You are a former pro fighter, allegedly, realistically, of course, and you can see it for what it is.
Yeah.
Is there any? And there's another part of this conversation that we can have in a second. But the first part is there any basis for him to suggest that this was an intentional elbow?
Simon, if I'm totally honest, mate, this is if I'm totally honest, purely because it wasn't intentional. It was a shot that landed. If you look at it in slow motion, that wasn't the shot that done the damage. It was the uppercut to start. It was the shot that done the damage. And then the final right hand, the left hook was in the middle. I know they've picked up on this and said, oh, the elbow has gone in and everything else. It wasn't very clear that I saw the elbow going in anyway. But even if the elbow did go in, Jesus, have a look at Mike Tyson's victories. Half his knockouts were like where he threw short left hooks and gone following through. It was unintentional. Because it was unintentional, they've got no grounds to stand on. I don't even know. It's a little bit embarrassing, actually, going on that, there's grounds for an appeal, because there's no appeal there. We know what happened. He went down. He got up too quick. His legs were gone. Liam Smith's never going to let you recover. He jumped on him and finished the job. Accept defeat, because that's exactly what it was, you know. And, yeah, this grounds for appeal, no. I think it was a very conclusive victory from Liam Smith.
I think that when you put a rematch clause in there, you put it in there for the A side. And unfortunately for Liam Smith in this conversation, I don't think he was the A side in the ring.
No.
But I think he was the A side. Eubank was the A side because of the promotion
sure.
and the way that the media and the boxing fraternity and the boxing public views Chris Eubank Jr.
Sure.
And so that would have been the reasons why a rematch clause was in place. Because
how tight was that rematch clause though? I mean, I know that you would know this. This is your bag.
I think it's pretty tight.
Yeah.
I think there might be other things that works at play here, because I don't think Chris Eubank Jr., this is supposition on my part, right? I think Chris Eubank Jr. cannot beat Liam Smith at 160 and would much prefer to come fight Conor Benn in Saudi Arabia for a big bag of money. Yeah. And I think suggesting that a rematch clause is a bit wonky and a bit wobbly and there's no reason for enforcing it gives you justification, potentially, for not being able to take a fight and make a fight somewhere else that is about money. Because if he goes and fights Conor Benn now, he's not fighting Conor Benn because it's going to advance his career. Yeah. He's fighting Conor Benn because it's going to advance his bank balance.
Yeah, absolutely.
The two things should not necessarily be mutually exclusive. But
it just tells you that the ambition and the desire to want to, now he's been beat by Liam Smith and how conclusively he was beat, is the ambition and desire to go and chase a world title. Now, reality may have hit home and he says, well, I may now need to just take those big money fights. So, you know, it'd be interesting to see where he goes with that, whether he want to activate that rematch clause or whether he'll want to go down a different route.
Well, this is it. Now, if they put a smoke screen up that tells you that there's a reason for that rematch clause not to be invoked, it gets them away from the fact they don't think they can win the fight. Absolutely. It doesn't damage Chris Eubank Jr., gets them to sell another fight somewhere else.
Yeah, sure.
And the next question could be, and should be really, right, if we're really being about the progression of boxing, contracts are contracts, and if there's a rematch clause and they both want it, then that's what we're going to get, right? Yeah. And if you can get away with it, if you can sell the story. And we should perhaps be selling the story, right? Yeah. If you can sell the story that an elbow did for him, then you can sell the rematch, right? Yeah, because everyone goes, well, actually, he might have been more in this fight without that
foul
elbow.
Play.
That's a load of cobblers, right?
Yeah.
What we really should be talking about, in my view, for what it's worth, is can we get Triple G in a ring with Liam Smith at Anfield?
But is there more value in that? Because obviously the money it's going to cost, like, I mean, from a business point of view, the money it costs to get Triple G over, etc.
Who gets more pay-per-views now? Who gets more pay-per-views now?
I think that Triple G, Liam Smith would get more pay-per-views than a return with.
There's your money.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know you'd have to pay Golovkin more.
Because it was such a one-sided fight. I think otherwise, if there was any sort of draw. If it's closer than it actually was, that fight with Liam Smith Eubank Jr., I think you had grounds to go on the rematch at Anfield would have been brilliant. But I think because of the way it went.
But the legacy of Golovkin still exists.
And the boxing fans love him.
Well, that's my point.
Absolutely.
So the fact that we stick him in England, he's fought in England before, he fought Kell Brook. Yeah, right? Yeah. So if you look at it and say, you get him to Anfield, that's a bucket list for Liam Smith. Yeah. You know you're going to have to pay Golovkin more money now than perhaps to get you would have to pay to Chris Eubank JR in the ring. But notwithstanding that, you're going to get more pay-per-views. Sky get around it, wrap themselves around it.
Yeah.
You've got a Sky fighter, in terms of Liam Smith.
Yeah.
With Ben Shalom. You've got a recognised, absolute marquee blue-chip fighter in Gennady Golovkin.
Modern-day legend.
A modern-day legend.
Yeah.
At Anfield in a football stadium, with the Scousers buying every single ticket that you could possibly get for that. I think that's the fight I want to see.
Sold me.
And the rest of the background noise about what Eubank is entitled to, or what he's trying to get out of, or what's of benefit to him, probably should be the secondary story.
Yeah, I agree.
You agree?
No, I'm totally on that,
Okay, we've Jordan covered that.
Yeah, you cleared that up for me because I was like a little bit foggy this morning when I woke up thinking about that. So I knew you would come in good sometime.
I have my uses. Right, that's it for episode 11 of Talk Boxing with myself, Simon Jordan, and Spencer Oliver. Now, don't forget to keep leaving the brilliant questions in the comment section below, but also, more importantly, apparently, according to my producer, must be on a bonus. Don't forget to keep subscribing, because once we get to 50,000 subscribers, we're on our way. So, thank you for watching. Look forward to seeing you next week.